Thank you for inviting me, Marie. It's a real pleasure to be here and to share my Polish perspective with the French academia. Yes, so today I would like to say a few words about the situation of academic freedom in Poland. And I think it does not come as a controversial statement to say that academic freedom both in Europe and globally has been under pressure. We have numerous studies telling us that even in the established Western democracies we have currently been experiencing declines in terms of academic freedom. And these assaults are, in the Polish context, they are especially present since 2015, when the new political majority came to power. And as you may probably know, our government, led by the Law and Justice Party, is known for its open disregard for the rule of law and other European liberal values. Since 2015, we have actually undergone some major transformations of our political and constitutional system, and this is likely not without an impact on academic freedom. And indeed, this correlation between, on the one hand, democratic regression, and on the other, decline in academic, in terms of in the indicators of academic freedom, is a well-studied phenomenon. And this is really present. This is what we are really experiencing now in Poland. And so, actually, to give you some indicators, currently Poland has the second lowest score in terms of academic freedom among the EU countries. So there is a specific index to measure this. And between 2011 and 2023, Poland's score has deteriorated from 0.98 to 0.74. Nevertheless, as declared by the European Parliament in a recent study concerning the state of academic freedom in the EU countries, the situation in Poland is still closer to that in other EU countries than to the situation in Hungary. Hungary has the lowest score of academic freedom in the EU. So in my presentation I would like to give you some examples of how this overall illiberal agenda of our government manifests itself in the realm of higher education, in particular in these assaults on academic freedom. But instead of conceptualizing academic freedom as Professor Olivier Beau did for us, I would like to go straight into the examples of the interferences. And I gathered the examples of these interferences to kind of reflect and to touch upon different dimensions of academic freedom as conceptualized, for instance, by the European institutions, in order to kind of show you that by touching upon these different dimensions, our government essentially attacks different features of academic freedom and the right as a whole. So the first situation that I would like to mention took place in 2019, and it was when the Ministry of Justice announced to file criminal charges against academic researchers who criticized the draft criminal code that was back then proceeded by the Parliament. And in their analysis, the researchers revealed that the drafted provisions were to exclude the liability for bribery of the highest managers of public entities in Poland, and so they essentially revealed what the government was trying to hide by speaking of completely different aspects of the reform. And so the ministry reacted by threatening and issuing a statement in which they said that they will press the charges against these researchers, and they openly called this expertise a lie. They said that it's not true. Luckily, a couple of days later, they withdrew from pressing these charges, but well, nevertheless, we see that this was a kind of strategic undermining of the value of the research findings, and also they threatened to pursue legal action. So they threatened them with defamation laws. So the second case concerned a very renowned Polish constitutional law scholar, Professor Wojciech Sadurski. He is a constitutional law scholar working at the University of Sydney. And he is also a fierce critic of the Law and Justice Party and the government more broadly. And he faced in total 3 charges, 2 civil charges and 1 criminal case, because of the opinions about the government that he shared online on Twitter. And he called the Peace Party an organized criminal group. And in another tweet, when referring to the public broadcaster, Polish television, he spoke of a Goebbelsian media company. So concerning the civil case, already the court of first instance stated that the opinion was within the realm of admissible critique and thus was deserved protection under freedom of expression. Then the party appealed, but the court upheld. The court of second instance upheld the judgment of the first instance, and likewise also the Supreme Court declared the party's extraordinary appeal inadmissible. So the civil case was won, and so the second civil case was also won by Professor Sadurski. The court also defended his freedom of expression, and Sadurski was also acquitted of criminal defamation charges. So all these 3 cases he won. And interestingly, the domestic court's assessment and evaluation of the situation of this case resembles protection of freedom of expression as understood by European Court of Human Rights, and the court has often stated that in the context of the freedom of academics, that this freedom is not restricted to academic or scientific research, but also extends to freedom to express freely their views and opinions, even if controversial or unpopular, in the areas of the research, professional expertise and competence. So I think this case is really interesting because obviously, because Sadurski was engaged in this series of very lengthy proceedings, we can also see that this is a strategic kind of undermining of his freedom. There is a classic example of the strategic litigation against public participation, so the so-called SLAPs. So the third case that I would like to mention concerned a Professor Barbara Engelking, who is a leading Polish researcher investigating the Holocaust. And she, during an interview for television, she said that Poles, during the World War II, Poles have often failed to help Jews in a broad sense. And leading politicians, the following day, leading politicians, including the Prime Minister and the Minister of Higher Education, condemned these statements, and they said that it is the exact opposite of a reliable historical truth. And she was also accused of falsifying the history and attacking the nation. The Polish Center for Holocaust Research at the Polish Academy of Sciences, where Barbara Engelking is working, shared its concern about the politicians publicly undermining the effects of her long-standing research. In response, once again, the Minister of Higher Education threatened to withhold public funding for the center. So this case, on the other hand, I think is an example of how the government is trying to curb the truth-seeking function of the academic research, and the reason for this is quite simple, I guess, is that because they are not interested in unveiling historical truth, but in promoting their own version of historical truth. One that aligns with their clearly nationalist and conservative leanings. So, in this case, obviously, both freedom of academic research was undermined, once again using the strategy of intimidation, but also financial arguments were used and this strategy is in the realm of academic freedom, it is often called a selective withholding of resources. So the third case concerns a law that was adopted by the Polish Parliament in May 2023, and this law was flagrantly unconstitutional, and it created a commission to investigate Russian influence on Polish politics. So under this law, to determine that a politician was indeed under such Russian influence could equal a ban of 10 years for performing public functions. What it means is that such a person could not run in the elections. So even though the law was seemingly universal, it was really drafted only to bring charges against the opposition leader, Donald Tusk, to prevent him from running in the upcoming parliamentary elections. But moving on to the aspect that is connected with academic freedom, after the law was signed by adopted and signed by the president, the president's former doctoral supervisor, who is a law professor, administrative law professor, said that it was really inadmissible that such law was adopted, and he even said that that the fact that Andrzej Duda, our president, signed the law was the worst decision that he did, was the worst thing that he did as an acting president. And so once again, on the following day, the Polish Minister of Higher Education stated that the government must finally put an end to the criticism of government by academics, and he said that the professors, and he said it on public television, that the professors who criticize the government are the so-called professors, they are not real professors. He also said that he will silence such academics in the next parliamentary term, which we all hope will not happen because we have the elections next week, so we hope that the government will just go down. And so finally, the fifth case that I would like to mention is concerns yet another tool for curbing free research, and that is when politicians try to determine which academic fields are scientific and which are not. So essentially the government tries to discourage researchers from pursuing their independent agendas by undermining the scientific value of their work. And in August 2023, so quite recently, the Minister of Higher Education publicly pledged to reform a national science center, which is a very important domestic body. It's a granting institution, independent of the ministry, with independent decision-making, which provides external funding for research in all scientific disciplines. And this announcement to reform the center came as a response to the center providing funding for transgender studies. So the minister commented that it is unacceptable that public funds are allocated to such research, and that such outrageous decision-making must be stopped. So, if we wanted to summarize all these cases, I think several strands are visible. So the assaults took place when the academic research or academic expression was against the government or its apparatus, or touching upon certain subjects. So in this case, this was the Holocaust or gender studies. So essentially, the goals of the government are twofold. First, to pressure the researchers to drop the criticism of the government, or to drop pursuing certain research in certain fields. Of course, the financial strategy is also important, which we have seen in the case of Barbara Engelking. I would like to add, nevertheless, that as the cases of Sadurski, on the other hand, illustrated, that the courts were able to constrain the government in these attempts to attack academic freedom and the freedom of academic expression. So the judiciary has by far been able to prevent these attacks, and prevent the government from actually interfering with the scope of the freedom. And this also was confirmed by the study of the European Parliament that I mentioned at the beginning, in which the Parliament says that the European Parliament says that the declining state of play of academic freedom in Poland is still largely about the increasing threats rather than structural violations. So in this case, once again, also in the context of what Professor Olivier Beau told us about the cases concerning Hungary in front of the European Court of Human Rights, we must really distinguish between the situation in Poland and the situation in Hungary in respect of academic freedom. So what it means in the context of this presentation is that the goals pursued by the government should still be largely seen as to intimidate, to silence, that is to produce a chilling effect. But overall, of course, I would say that academic freedom has been under great pressure in Poland, but the academia has by far withstand the attacks. Thank you.